Hi everyone. Today we are going to discuss about module 2, that is psychology and criminal behavior. So in this chapter we are going to deal with the crime, its biological factors, then biological perspectives, that is central nervous system, then structure and functions of central nervous system, then peripheral nervous system, then endocrine system, that is pituitary, 22, thyroid gland, thyroid gland, then neurotransmitters, then we are going to learn about social learning theories, psychoso- physio- psycho- psychosocial theories, theories of offending, then psychopathology and personality disorders, then ethical issues. So these are the topics we are going to deal with this module. So let's start with first one, psychological crime and biological factors. So we all know that what is a crime. So crime is an illegal act. So how this crime is related with the or how the biological factors are involved in doing these kind of illegal activities. So that crime is an illegal act, and how this crime is related with the biological factors. So what are the biological factors involved in doing crime? So we can say there are so many researchers and mainly three sets of biological risk factors. Three sets of biological risk factors are involved in doing a crime or committing a crime. So first one we can say is genetics, and then neurotransmitter, and third one is neurobiology. So there are three sets of biological risk factors mainly involved in committing a crime. So first one is genetics, and then neurotransmitters and neurobiology. So these factors should be understood as representative of the kind of issues addressed in biological research about the cause of crime. So let's see first about genetics. So there is an ongoing debate about the role of genetics in human behavior, and although researcher does suggest that some inherited characteristics may contribute to antisocial or criminal behavior. So genetics means inherited characteristics. So these inherited characteristics are, or they can contribute to some antisocial or criminal behavior. And some of the evidence suggests that genetic connection with the chronic offending, in particular that property crime. So in property crimes, these genetic factors are involved more, and some little only little evidence about genetic connection with violent crimes. So in violent crimes, less evidence for the relation with genetics and this criminal behavior. So only less evidence is there for violent crimes, but so many evidence are there for property crimes that genetics is related with the criminal behavior or the antisocial behavior. So for example, we can say that a genotype that confers a low level of the enzyme monoamine oxidase. So one enzyme called monoamine oxidase. So this enzyme may predispose and individual to violent social behavior. So this enzyme makes an individual to expose their violent or anti-social behavior. But this exists when an individual or where an individual with the gene has been exposed to abuse as a child. So if an individual had been abused or exposed for an abuse at his childhood, then this gene will express. So one enzyme called monoenzyme oxidase. So this one genotype is there. So this confers a low level of this enzyme monoamine oxidase, and this can expose an individual to the violent or antisocial behavior. But when this will happen, when this individual exposed to any kind of abuse in his or her childhood, then that time this gene will express. So that we can say that some relation between genetics and antisocial behavior. So this is an example for that. Gene this enzyme is an example for that. Then next is neurotransmitter. So hormones are chemicals used by the body to communicate between cells. You all know that this kind of what is for hormones. So I'm not going to explain that. So hormones are chemicals used by the body to communicate between cells. These are chemicals. So there are so many examples for hormones, but for criminality, for relation with criminality, we are using serotonin, then norepinephrine, and dopamine. So mainly researchers use these three hormones for finding out the relation between the hormones and criminal behavior. So there appears to be a strong relationship between this serotonin and antisocial behavior. So there is a strong relationship between uh, criminal behavior and serotonin level. So if there is low level of serotonin, then the person might expose his antisocial behavior. And there is a moderate relationship between norepinephrine and this criminal behavior, and there is no effect for this dopamine. So numerous studies have found links between low serotonin level or low serotonin activity and childhood conduct. mainly childhood activities such as conduct disorders and antisocial personality disorders and criminal behavior. And so this is about neurotransmitters. So this or everything I will explain in depth in coming classes. So this time just telling just an introduction about these biological factors that are contributing to criminal behaviors. So the third one is neurobiology. So neurobiology focus on the structure and functions of brain. So we all know that there are so many kinds of brain mapping, brain fingerprinting like that. I think you have heard all these names, all these terms. So the improvements in technology for examining the brain in action, for example, magnetic resonance imaging, we can say like brain mapping and all, have provided new information on the functions of brain. So we can identify the function of brain. We can find out the function of brain by using these kind of new techniques such as uh, magnetic magnetic resonance imaging, then brain fingerprinting, etc. So there is an increasing evidence that neurological damage is an important mediating mechanism that leads to offending. So if there is any neurological damage that act as a mediator for offenses. So criminal behavior is because of this neurological damage. So neurobiology theory this tells that neurological damage is a cause for doing the offenses. So evidence suggests that the damage to prefrontal cortex of brain, this damage of the prefrontal cortex of the brain through any kind of head injury or birth complication or diseases. So this because of head injury, birth defect, by birth it can cause, or by any kind of diseases or any kind of use of drugs like alcohols alcohol or drugs. This can cause the a damage of prefrontal cortex. So this is linked with this damage of prefrontal cortex is linked with the antisocial behavior. So prefrontal activity ability is thought to limit the ability to control impulsive aggressive feelings, encouraging risk taking, rule breaking, emotional and aggressive outbursts. So we can say that this ability of prefrontal ability, prefrontal ability, this can limit the ability to control impulsive, aggressive feelings, encourage risk taking, rule breaking, emotional and aggressive outbursts as well as resulting in poor reasoning ability, loss of intellectual flexibility, and problem solving skills. So, prefrontal damage can cause their limit or limit to the abilities such as control impulsive aggressive feelings, encourage risk taking or rule breaking, emotional and aggressive outburst, as well as result in poor reasoning ability and loss of intellectual flexibility and problem solving skills. So this can happen to leading to failure to go to school. And risks to developing brain arise even before birth also because of drugs, alcohols, and cigarette butts, use of cigarettes. So these are the causes or risk factors for the developing brain arise even before death and after this birth. mm, the damage of prefrontal cortex because of any head injury or disease or environmental toxins. This also can contribute to the prefrontal cortex damage, so that they will lose the ability to think properly. So that is also a cause of or cause for antisocial or criminal behavior. So mainly we told about these biological factors in this session. I will explain this in detail in coming session. So I hope you understood till here. So if you have any doubts, you can clear. So let's meet in the next session. Thank you.